those of you who have been here before and those for whom this is the first time. In many ways, Nick Adams' life is a miracle. 16 months after his birth in his native Australia, he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of childhood cancer. He was given a 1 in 20 chance of surviving. Pretty long odds. He beat the odds with his determination, with a great deal of prayer, and by the grace of God. He went on to earn a postgraduate degree from the University of Sydney, and at age 21, Nick became the youngest deputy mayor in the history of Sydney, Australia. Nick has long admired America and American values. He's worked tirelessly to spread those values. He created a foundation. It's called the Foundation for Liberty and American Greatness, or FLAG, if you will, to basically promote American civic lessons to elementary schools and to high schools. Nick does that by focusing on the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, two foundational documents of our country. He's also a best-selling author of 4 books. His recent book, Green Card Warrior, won the recommendation of President Trump, who called it a must-read. By the way, that book and his other books will be available afterwards for purchase and for autographing. I know Nick would like you to go home with one of his books. He's appeared on just about every major television and radio program. He's been published in newspapers around the world. He's spoken in 30 states and 3 countries. He has received numerous honors, including being named a Kentucky Colonel. Yes. To paraphrase Robert Burns, who said, "Oh, with some power, give us the gift to see ourselves as we are." Okay. Nick is that gift to America. So without any further ado, I'll introduce my friend Nick Adams.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What an honour, pleasure and privilege it is to be able to be here with you today at the historic Union League Club. I want to extend my profound gratitude to Joe for that wonderful, stellar introduction. Thank you very much. I could not have done so better myself. It's great to see Joe, and it's wonderful that he has his beautiful wife, Mrs. Nancy Van Hoff, here as well today. My beautiful wife, Sadie, is also present. And we have the great fortune of being really close friends with Joe and Nancy's daughter, Laurel, who happens to live in Washington, D.C. So that's the connection. I also would like to thank Mary Ann Hackett for being kind enough to have invited me and have me here today. I'm really thrilled to be in such an august and auspicious location. What an honour, pleasure and privilege it is to be in the land of the free and the home of the brave. In the world's exceptional nation, in civilization's indispensable country. And to top it all off, if all of that weren't enough, in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, the windy city of Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to share with you a story. And as I share this story with you, I invite you to momentarily close your eyes and really imagine what it is that I'm sharing with you. It's December of 1985. 2 parents are at their wits' end. Something is wrong with their 16-month-old child. For months they've been to doctor after doctor, pediatrician after pediatrician, but nobody can tell them what is wrong. One night, with their child even more unsettled than usual, they head to the emergency ward of the local children's hospital. The ward is almost deserted, but there's one overnight doctor there, a young man with a smiling face and an accent. As he looks the child over, his smile quickly evaporates. He tells the parents that he can't be sure, but he has a hunch that he may have seen this before. And he fears that their child has a very rare form of incurable cancer. He commands the parents to return with their child the very next morning and prescribes a certain set of tests to be undertaken. The very next day, the parents' worst fears would be confirmed. Their child had stage 4 neuroblastoma, a very rare form of cancer indeed. The parents were mine. The child was me. The doctor, it turned out, was an American. The cause of neuroblastoma remains unknown to this day, with only 1 in 100,000 children being diagnosed with it each year. Notoriously difficult to diagnose. When it is, the tumour has almost always already metastasised. A child, an infant, a baby with stage 4 neuroblastoma is given just a 5% chance of life. Only 1 in 20 survive. For 3.5 years I underwent chemotherapy, radiotherapy and an operation. And through the healing hands of God, our master physician, I defied the odds and lived. It was the instincts of an American doctor, fresh out of college, just in Australia for a summer residency, that proved crucial to my survival. So I'm fond of saying that I haven't only studied American exceptionalism, I've lived it. In fact, I'm alive because of it. Once I became of an age where I could properly comprehend the magnitude of my escape, I resolved that I would never ever waste a single second of a minute, of an hour, of a day, of a month, of a year, ever. And I'm proud to say that I have very much lived up to my own self-pledge. Since that early adversity, I have been unstoppable. I was the valedictorian of my school. I was publicly elected to political office at the age of 19. The first election I ever voted in, I voted for myself. It's all been downhill since then. 8 days after my 21st birthday, I became the youngest deputy mayor in Australian history on the 13th of September 2005, a record which still stands to this day. I was a best-selling author before I turned the age of 30. I now have 4 best-selling books. I have the distinction of being the first author to have ever had a book endorsed by a sitting president of the United States of America. And that honour came on the 3rd of March last year, 2017, when the president took to Twitter, where else, to declare that my book, Green Card Warrior, was a must-read and that I was a great American. 6 months later, again without any warning, without any prompting, on the 25th of August last year, the president again took to Twitter to endorse my previous book called Retaking America, Crushing Political Correctness. That does sound like his kind of book, doesn't it? Earning me the distinction of being the only author to have ever had 2 books endorsed by a sitting president of the United States. And in fact, in September of last year, the president was spotted by the press corps boarding Marine One on his way to Camp David with Retaking America under his arm, which has prompted many in the media to refer to me, rather generously I should say, as the president's favourite author. So it has been quite the ride. Many of you will recognise me from television. I'm a frequent guest on Fox News, Fox Business, CNN, and all of cable television. I have spoken in 30 different states. I've given keynote addresses in 5 different countries. I serve as a surrogate for the White House. I am recognised worldwide as an authority on American exceptionalism. In fact, I have decided to dedicate my life to promoting, protecting and perpetuating what I consider to be the greatest idea ever, the American idea. To top all of that off, if all of that weren't enough, on the 29th of July 2016, after 4.5 long, torturous and arduous years, including a stint on the no-fly list, courtesy of the Obama administration and John Kerry's State Department, and $50,000 later, I finally legally immigrated to the United States of America. I'm an American. Which gives me a very unique trifecta. I'm Australian by birth, Texan by appointment, thank you Governor Rick Perry, a Kentucky colonel commissioned by Governor Matt Bevin, an honorary Oklahomian appointed by Governor Mary Fallon, but most importantly, American by choice. Thank you. So what is it that I believe in? I believe in God, personal responsibility, the sanctity of human life, limited government, a strong national defence, the right to bear arms. Up there with all of those things, ladies and gentlemen, I believe in the United States of America. And if there is one take-home message that I have for you this afternoon, if there is one thing that I want you to remember when you go home and rest your head on your cold pillow tonight, it is this: despite the undeniable, incontrovertible and indisputable challenges, threats and problems currently afflicting the United States of America, this is still easily, by far and away, hands down, head and shoulders, the greatest country in the history of the world. Every single time I speak before an elementary school, middle school, public high school or college audience, I look those students in the eyes and I tell them that the day that they were born in the United States of America is the day that they won the lottery of life. And they got the most incredible, the most amazing, the most remarkable, the most sensational head start on anyone and everyone everywhere else. This is the best country in the world to be born in. This is the best country in the world to live in. This is the best country in the world to work in. This is the best country in the world to start a business in. This is the best country in the world to realise a dream. This is the only country in the world where your first language or last name means absolutely nothing. This is the only country in the world where success is not yet resented but still admired and respected. This is the only country in the world where you are free to colour outside of the lines and not be punished. This is the only country in the world where anybody can rise above the circumstances of their birth to go on and achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve. This is the only country in the world where you can start with nothing and make absolutely everything. This is the only country in the world where failure is not fatal, where you can fall down 5,000 times, but if you've got grit, determination and hustle, tenacity, you can get up 5,001. This is, if you have a look throughout the history of the United States, Thomas Edison had 1,000 cracks at the light bulb. Walt Disney went bankrupt twice, almost 3 times. Same story with Henry Ford. Colonel Harlan Sanders had his recipe for fried chicken rejected 1,009 times before he got a taker. After all, where else can you go bankrupt 3 times and become president of the United States of America? You see, America is special because America is not just a country, not simply a stretch of land, not merely a geographic entity. America is an idea, is an ideal, a notion, an improbable and daring experiment that remains just as improbable and daring today. It's the hope that banishes all hopelessness. It's the shot that was heard around the world and still is. There are 4 ways that a nation is said to be exceptional: culturally, militarily, economically, and scientifically. And on each of those 4 measurements, in almost 5,000 years of recorded human history, with less than 5% of the world's population. Let me repeat that again. With less than 5% of the world's population, America has dominated those 4 spheres to an extent previously considered impossible. But none of that success, none of that power, none of that influence, none of that might just happened. None of it was accidental, none of it was incidental. No, to the contrary. All of it was extraordinarily deliberate, extremely intentional. You see, the most brilliant men to have ever walked this earth were our founders, that understood that the way to unlocking human ingenuity, the way to unleashing human creativity, the way to driving human accomplishment was to make sure that men and women were as unencumbered as possible by the need for government approvals and red tape. It's for precisely the same reason that the United States of America has ascended to the position of guardian of liberty, as the custodian of civilization. I invite you to contemplate for just a fleeting moment what the world might look like without the United States of America. North Korea would invade South Korea. Taiwan would be overrun by China. War, maybe nuclear, would break out in the Middle East. Russia would attempt to rebuild the Soviet Empire. Islamic terrorists would act with complete impunity. Tyrants in North Africa would run around even more mercilessly than what they already do. Cataclysmic natural disasters would have no concerted, coordinated response effort. Individual liberty would gradually diminish and ultimately become extinct. That's what a world without the United States of America looks like. And that's why it's in the interest of everyone, no matter who you are, where you come from, what your first language was, what your last name is, what you do for work, even if you have never so much as even set your little toe on American soil. It's in your interest that America be as self-assertive, as self-confident, as healthy and as robust as possible. Why? Because the equation is really, really simple. What is good for America is good for the world. When America is strong, the world is strong. When America is weak, the world is a weak and dangerous place. Now, that's not my hypothesis that I've scribbled on the back of a cocktail napkin after a few too many drinks at the Union League Club. We were living that reality real time up until about 20 months ago, when we had elites at the highest levels of the federal government that were insistent on ensuring that America retreated in the world, that it vacated its traditional role of leading from the front and instead elected to lead from behind. And as a result, although now calming with new leadership, the world is still an infinitely more dangerous place than it has been for a very, very long period of time. Ladies and gentlemen, political correctness is killing the United States of America. You see, most people think that political correctness is simply an imposition on speech, just something that tells us what we can say and what we can't say. Well, that would be egregious enough with our very proud tradition of the First Amendment. But I'm here to tell you with regret rich in my voice that political correctness is infinitely more than that. Political correctness is a way of life, it's a mentality, it's a cultural mindset, one that says that you should strive for mediocrity and not greatness, that you shouldn't colour outside the lines lest you be punished, that you should resent those that have differentiated themselves financially, professionally, or in some other manner more so than you. Political correctness mandates that success and achievement be a measurement of how much butt you kiss as opposed to how much butt you kick. What could be more un-American element? It's an intellectual tyranny. It's a totalitarian ideology that strips us of our individualism, eliminates our patriotism, removes our self-confidence, and in doing so, political correctness is transforming the American dream into the European nightmare. And why on earth would we want to follow the trajectory of the once great nations of Europe, now with demography in decline, with Islam in the ascendancy, where churches are being routinely transformed into nightclubs? Those societies, those cultures, those polities have become moribund and pedestrian and vanilla and boring. There's no hunger, there's no passion, there are no dreams, there's no innovation, there's no ingenuity. That's not the future that we want for the United States of America. That's not the future that we want for our children and our grandchildren and their great-great-great-grandchildren. And that's certainly not the future that our founders had envisioned for us. You see, America is a complex place, but American exceptionalism is really, really simple. It's individualism, not collectivism. Patriotism, not relativism. God, not government. Faith, not secularism. Equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. It's e pluribus unum, not radical multiculturalism. It's about life, not death. It's about being bold, not being bland. These are the virtues and values that have differentiated the United States of America from every other polity on this earth in almost 5,000 years of human history. And yet proponents and advocates of political correctness would seek to eliminate every single one of those points of differentiation, rendering America just another country, just another place. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very personal to me. I chose to come to the United States of America. I came to make, not take, to give, not receive, to join the place, not complain about it or change it. I came because I knew that this was the greatest country in the history of the world. I came because I knew that this was the country that would afford me the most freedom and the most opportunity to achieve the dreams that God put in my heart. But I also came here in no small measure to make sure that America does not turn out like the country I felt I had to leave. The international perception about Australia is vastly different to the domestic reality. Most Americans, like most people around the world, think that in Australia people box kangaroos by day and wrestle crocodiles by night. If that were the case, maybe I might still be there. But the reality is vastly different. Australia is and has always been an infinitely more European place in terms of culture, in instinct, in proclivity, and in setup. And anybody that has taken even a cursory glance at policy areas such as healthcare and gun ownership and things like that will know that America truly stands alone when it comes to values, virtues, and setup. So I am on a mission to make sure that every single American, from north to south, east to west, and everywhere in between, knows how lucky, how blessed, and how fortunate they are to be living in the United States of America. But particularly our young, especially the next generation of American leaders, those that will be bequeathed with the most awesome responsibility conceivable, keeping the great American experiment alive. I want to make sure that they know how lucky and how fortunate and how blessed they are to be living in the United States of America. I want every child in this country to have a heart beating for America. I don't want it piping hot for America. America. I want them to know what it means to be an American. I want them to have the courage to defend America. I want them to believe in American values, not European values. That's why I set up an organisation called FLAG, the Foundation for Liberty and American Greatness, one of the fastest growing non-profits in America today. FLAG is all about doing two things: teaching civics and putting patriotism back in public schools. We do so, that is worth a round of applause. We do so through three ways. Number one, classroom visits. Number two, professional development for teachers. And number three, by creating resources for teachers, parents and students. FLAG goes into elementary, middle and public high schools, talking to kids about what makes America special, what makes America different, why is the Constitution the best political document ever written, what would the world look like without the United States of America, what would the world be like today had it not been for American leadership in the 20th century, what all has the United States given the world, why has it been an unparalleled force for good? And in doing so, we seek to counter the army of anti-American activists, often masquerading as teachers, deliberately and recklessly trying to depict America as a hateful place, intentionally seeking to raise a generation of Americans to be at best ambivalent, if not worse, overtly and outwardly hostile to their own country of birth or residence. I'm often asked what I consider to be the greatest threat facing the United States of America. And that can be a difficult question to answer, because you could answer it in a multitude of ways. But the conclusion I unfailingly reach and always offer is this: for several generations now, we have not passed on what it means to be an American. We have not taught Americanism. And as a result, our children do not understand what makes America special, what makes America different. Last year, I had the great honour of being able to visit 42 public schools. And I was utterly alarmed at the complete lack of understanding and basic appreciation of the United States Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers. So I decided to do something about it. FLAG teamed up with interns from the late Justice Antonin Scalia's office, and we got the United States Constitution into simple, plain, easy to understand English that even a 5th grader can comprehend. We launched it with a special 3-hour event on Fox News last year. This is that resource. This is our students' Constitution. On the heels of that stunning success, in April, at the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C., we launched the world's first kid-friendly Declaration of Independence. And I am really, same idea, same concept, and I am really proud to tell you that as of last week, we now have either one of these two resources in the hands of more than 250,000 students in all 50 states. Because we want to make sure that the next generation of Americans are tethered to the founding values and virtues contained within these documents. We also have our FLAG Schools Pledge, which asks schools to commit to doing 3 things. Number 1, recite the Pledge of Allegiance every day. Number 2, have an American flag in every classroom. And number 3, sing the national anthem before all major sporting events. Yes. And I'm proud to tell you that thousands of schools have already signed up to that commitment. This month, thank you. This month, under the great guidance of my wife, formerly a high school teacher, and now the national Education Director for FLAG, FLAG has launched the first of its kind professional development program where we teach teachers how to incorporate American exceptionalism and patriotism into their lesson plans, into curriculum development, and into the general school environment. As FLAG has grown with the exponential growth that we have experienced, so has our platform. In addition to teaching patriotism and civics in public schools, FLAG has also declared war on this idea that every child has got to go to college. I went to college, I got 2 degrees. I had a great time. But the reality is that not everybody is made for college. We need plumbers, electricians, machinists, welders, carpenters. And there are some really good reasons that we do not want our children going to college unless they are tailor-made for it. Yes. Number one, we want them to avoid the almost inevitable liberal indoctrination that awaits them on any college campus. Number two, we don't want them graduating up to their eyeballs saddled in debt. Number three, we want to ensure they have success in being able to find a job. How many graduates just can't find work after having gone through 3 or 4 years of university or college? And number four, and most importantly and most appealing of all, we want to give the next generation of Americans the opportunity to go out one day and do the most American thing of all. Go and start their own business. Go and employ people, create wealth, achieve the American dream, become entrepreneurs. And we're working with Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs, who's been on that bandwagon for some time, and we're going to be hosting a high school entrepreneurship summit next year in Dallas, Texas, to make sure that we are making children aware that they have a choice to not go to college if they so desire. Ladies and gentlemen, let me finish with this. In July, America celebrated her 242nd birthday. A time for great celebration, but I would also submit a time for sober and sombre contemplation. Because if you go and ask any historian worth their salt how long great nations tend to last, they'll tell you somewhere between 230 and 270 years. And that puts America right in the kill zone. To make matters worse, for the first time, the enemies of the United States are no longer only foreign. There are also people within America rooting for America's decline and diminishment. But as a lifelong student of American history, I remain unswervingly convinced that our best days still lie ahead. From the early defeats by Britain in the War of Independence, to the loss of the Philippines, to Pearl Harbor, to the days following September 11th. Every single time America has been under attack, every single time America and freedom have been shoved up against a corner wall in a room, America has emerged bigger and stronger and better than ever before. It was the French nobleman Alexis de Tocqueville who visited the United States of America in the 18th century, who famously observed in his sociological masterpiece, Democracy in America, that the true genius of Americans lay in their ability to repair their faults. He noted their incredible propensity to recorrect a trajectory. Sir Winston Churchill, my political hero, the great wartime Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and to my mind, the greatest figure of the 20th century, also once affectionately jibed that America always does the right thing after exhausting every other option. And here I stand before you as a third outsider, telling you that I identify the same boomerang spirit, that same resilience in the American psyche. For the last 60 years, ladies and gentlemen, a culture war has raged in this country. But only one side has been fighting. They've done it with lies, violence, the threat of violence, and the hostile takeovers of universities. They are dedicated to nothing short of our complete annihilation. They have been governed only by the rules of Saul Alinsky and the Chicago mob.
Exactly. Yes.
While this culture war has raged, we conservatives, we hard-working men and women, we patriots have been busy paying off our mortgages, saving up our money to send our kids off to college. And we have consistently and constantly sought the high plane and prized things like collegiality and dignity and propriety, to the point where now we wake up in the morning and we almost choke on our bacon and eggs when we turn on the news, because we cannot believe what we are seeing. The local high school has decided to change its name. The statue outside the courthouse has been designated for removal. The elementary school 2 counties away has officially changed Columbus Day on the school calendar to read Indigenous Peoples Day. This relentless assault on American values is happening day in and day out. And the reason for it is that all of the cultural institutions that shape and generate our culture and our society are in the hands of people that want to fundamentally transform the United States of America. People that have a very different vision of what America should be. People that don't like the things about America that we like. People that want to change America to be like other places around the world. This is a fight that we did not start, but that we must finish. This is a fight that we will not shirk and we will not run away from. This is a fight that we want. This is a fight that we must have. This right here is freedom's Colosseum. Freedom will live or freedom will perish right here in the United States of America. And the pages of the history books yet to be written will reflect the actions that we determined to take at this critical juncture. Did we make sure that every child had a heart beating for America? Did we make sure that every American knew what it meant to be an American? Did we go and talk to our family members? Did we go and talk to our friends? Did we go into our church and get our fellow congregants and bring them to the voting booths? Did we take every possible action we could to save the Republic as it was? These are the questions that are going to determine whether or not America remains the blessed and beautiful America that we know and love so much. The reality is, and it always hurts me to say, but we need to acknowledge the reality before we can win this fight. The reality is that in the last 6 decades, there have been people in this country that have wanted to destroy America more than we have wanted to protect it. And that's why we're in the position that we are in. This is a fight for everything. Our civilization, our way of life, our values and our virtues. We can win this fight. We must win this fight. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you.